Alright, here's a little tutorial on how to Super Duty axle swap your OBS Ford. I guess the first thing would be, what's the advantage of this? Well, Super Duty axle is not going to be a TTB, it's going to be a solid axle, as you can see here. Now, this particular set of Super Duty axles is out of a V10 truck, so it's got 430 gears. Now, you can get them in 373s as well, and 410s too, I believe, but they're kind of rare. So this is actually a Dana 50, it is not a Dana 60. It's still putting strong enough for most applications, and it gets you away from the TTB. But not everything is the exact same. Now, steering bolts up, it all bolts up. It is bolted. But here's going to be your difference. The perches on this axle are going to be wider. Now, you probably could screw around with moving perches and whatnot if you really cared. But in my opinion, there's no point. I think it's like a ½ inch or so, maybe an inch. So a ½ inch on each side. You can get your springs to move out that far. So the front is a direct swap. Now, where you're going to run into issues is the rear. Now, these perches are the exact same, so this is also bolted. But these axles are going to have a 1410 U-joint. Problem with the 1410 U-joint is it's too big. This particular truck, now, every truck's obviously going to be different. But this truck in particular had a 1330 U-joint factory, and it already had a 1330 to 1350 adapter U-joint in the rear. Now, you can get a 1330 to a 1350 all day long, but you cannot get a 1330 to a 1410. You can also get a 1350 to a 1410 U-joint, but you cannot go from that big of a jump, a 1330 to a 1410. So this here is a 1350 yoke, but not just any yoke will work. Since this Ford 10 1/4 1350 U-joint is a short yoke, this will not fit. Your nut will not tighten all the way. Now, I do know a guy that built adapters and stuff and made it work, but you can find a late 90s Ford 10 1/4 with a 1350 yoke, and it will bolt right in. And then all you need is a 1330 to a 1350 U-joint adapter. Lucky for me, I already have that. Really, it's a pretty straightforward swap. It's almost directly bolt-in, minus you have to track down a late 90s rear yoke and then get an adapter U-joint for the rear drive shaft if you have a 1330 from the factory. But really, the main advantage of this is you get a solid front axle. Then the reason you do have to change the rear is because the lug pattern is different. You could run adapters, but the front gear ratio has to match. I'm pretty sure 373s are the most common in these, which will be a pain to get an OBS rear in a 373. And 430 is pretty common. And that's another thing, you can't get an OBS rear in 430s. So you'd have to find a 410 front end, and those are kind of hard to find. But you could make it work with the factory back axle and then run adapters. That's going to be all. Just thought I'd do a quick video on how I Super Duty axle swapped to this. The early 2000s, obviously, it's leaf sprung in the front. But that'll be all.